about 2 weeks ago, I posted a video titled something like, "Do some Black Lives Matter More Than Others?" And I'll put a link to that video below. And events this past weekend in Chicago and other cities just this make me even more certain that's the case, because otherwise I don't understand how you can explain what's happening in this country. Last weekend in Chicago, 78 people were shot. 11 of them fatally. 4 of them were children. One of them was a 3-year-old boy. This is his picture. Do you know his name? Have you seen protests in the streets across the country about the death of this little boy? You seen rioting, looting, arson, anything? BLM protests? No. Why? Why? What's the difference between this little kid, his name is McKay James, and George Floyd? Was George Floyd somehow more innocent than a 3-year-old boy? I mean, George Floyd was, passing counterfeit money. Now, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he deserved to die because of that. He surely didn't, and he was murdered. And I expect that's what a jury will find. But he wasn't, the most innocent person walking around on the face of the planet. This kid was 3 years old. 3 years old. In the back of his car, somebody was trying to kill his father, and he got hit. And he died. And I think in Austin, Texas, a little 3-year-old girl died. And even in Chicago, 3 other children died. They're all black. What's the difference between McKay James and George Floyd? Why are people all riled up about George Floyd and nobody even, probably most of you didn't even know the name of this little kid? Because McKay James was killed by a black person and George Floyd was killed by a white cop. And that's what I said in the other video. I mean, that this is just isn't right. If all Black lives matter and matter equally, we should be seeing protests in the street for the little 3-year-old boy, McKay James. And we're not seeing them. We see them for George Floyd. I can only conclude, and I'm open to somebody to explain the difference to me, that some Black lives matter than others. And it seems that the Black lives that matter the most are the Black lives taken by white people, especially white cops, which is what I said in the earlier video. And I stand by what I said. How else can you explain all the things that have happened in the wake of George Floyd's death and the virtual crickets, nationwide at least, outside of Chicago, for the death of this boy? A 3-year-old kid. It's about as innocent as you can get. And he's dead of a gunshot wound from an African American who shot him, probably a male. Why doesn't his life matter as much as George Floyd's? What about the other, 80 plus people who were shot over the weekend in Chicago? Mostly black, by black people. What about the, 11 who died? Black, at the hands of black people. What seems to matter in this country most is getting killed by white people, which is in a sense a form of racism. What makes your life matter if you're black is getting killed by white people. That's the bottom line. If you're killed by a black person, nobody knows who you are. Your life really doesn't matter that much. I'm not saying it doesn't matter at all. I mean, obviously, this kid's family were devastated by this. And I saw one of his relatives on TV saying, "Where's the outrage? Where are the protests? Why isn't my kid's death being treated like George Floyd? Where's Black Lives Matter?" And those are all good questions. And unfortunately for this poor woman, I don't have any of the answers. What am I supposed to say to her? Well, little McKay wasn't killed by a white person. Can you imagine if he had been gunned down by a white cop in a shootout? We would all know his name. There would be nationwide protests. There would be calls to defund and reform and eliminate the police departments in this country. But he wasn't. He was killed by some black gangbanger. So he's treated with crickets. His name will be quickly forgotten by everybody but his family and friends. Maybe the members of the church his family went to. George Floyd will live forever. McKay James will be forgotten. Because some black lives matter more than others. And what makes a black life matter more than anything else is to die at the hands of a white man. And that's a form of racism. Not coming from white racist supremacists. It's coming from the left, and it's coming from within the African American community. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button so you'll know when I post new videos. And until the next time, I am out of here.